Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest on the line right now. He's the New York City Commissioner of Small Business Service. We have Commissioner Bishop on the line. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
How you doing? Good seeing you. Good seeing everyone.
Good seeing
sir.
you
Good
too.
morning. Yes, Greg Bishop. Now, I wanted to talk to you about this Paycheck Protection Program and the money from the stimulus package that's supposed to be going to small businesses. They allocated $350 billion, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And they're saying that today that money could run out.
Yeah, so it just shows the massive need that our small businesses have in this country. And I know you had Robert Smith on earlier.
Yes, sir.
Everyone across the country, all small businesses were looking to get this capital. The challenge and my concern, and some of the things I've been talking about, is that a lot of our smaller businesses are, businesses in communities of color, Black-owned businesses, Latino-owned businesses, may not have a traditional banking relationship. And then some of our larger banks in New York City, for example, took about a week to get online. So, the money is about to run out. I expect Congress to reappropriate more funding for the Paycheck Protection Program. But it's a great program in terms of if you actually get the money, it's a forgivable loan. Businesses can use it for their payroll, and they have 8 weeks to hire employees back to their levels, and then it becomes forgivable. The challenge, though, is that we don't know whether or not in 8 weeks we'll have, business the way it used to be. I don't think if you're running a club or if you have a restaurant, in 8 weeks, people are going to feel comfortable sitting in a crowded area. So there's some tweaks we are proposing, and I'm advocating for Congress to change some of these things because, we have to make sure that we help our small businesses. In New York City, in New York City alone, small businesses employ almost 3 million New Yorkers. And nationwide, most of our employment is through small businesses. So it's important to support our small businesses.
Now, if you have a small business, what website can people go to see how they can possibly get this money? Because a lot of people are out there hurting. So how can they figure out how they can get this money, how much money they can get, and how long it will take?
Quickbase.com.
What is that?
Quickbase.com. That's the site Robert set up.
Yeah, so there's that. In New York City, we have the Department of Small Business Services, which is the agency I run. Individuals can go to nyc.gov/COVID19BIZ and learn about all the different SBA programs. I think, one of the challenges, though, is that, you have a lot of business owners who were informal. So they were running a business, but they had like a personal bank account. So that makes them ineligible for the PPP. So if you are looking for capital, there's only a few options that you have. Most municipalities, even we in New York City, we had a grant program and we had a loan program, but they've been oversubscribed, so we've stopped accepting applications. I speak to all my counterparts across the country, and we're all facing the same challenge. We need the federal government to have a more coordinated approach. And we see it, in terms of the fact that they signed legislation and 10 days later that we had a program. But we now need to make sure it's more focused. We need our community banks to be participating. We need our CDFIs, so that's the Community Development Financial Institutions. These are the smaller lenders who actually know how to reach smaller businesses and businesses that are run by people of color.
Now,
What if
Commissioner,
you pay your employees in cash?
So, for some of the programs, for the PPP, you have to show some type of payroll record. So if you pay your employees in cash and there's no record of that, then you don't have any employees. And these are some of the challenges that we have. These are some of the challenges that we've seen with business owners. And what we're doing in New York, and certainly you can find that nationwide with the small business development centers, but in New York City, through our NYC Business Solution Centers, we're providing guidance, whether it's legal guidance or financial guidance for businesses to understand which programs they are eligible for.
Now,
Commissioner, there was a lot.
I was gonna say you mentioned, the bad thing about that is for a lot of us, especially in our community, we don't know about business. We never were taught. So, a lot of people are winging it. So they might not have a business account or know what they're doing, but they still have a successful business. So for those people, they just asked out.
No, I mean there was the SBA put together a great package of programs where if you're an independent contractor, which you would eventually that's what you would be qualified for, or sole proprietor at least, you can actually participate in the Paycheck Protection Program. The problem is if you had your personal account as your main business account, you're automatically excluded. There are some thought leaders out there like Robert Smith, Wally Coxum, who runs a company called Mocafy. They're thinking about how to actually formalize, these type of businesses. But the challenge, though, is that the first stimulus is done. So now we need to make sure that we get our businesses ready for the second stimulus. And I'm also pushing for additional. This is going to be a long haul. This is not going to be, in August we're out there and we're having fun. This pandemic is, I think, for businesses, it's going to be a slow ramp up. And we're not going to see any return to what I would call the new normal, probably until next year. So business owners need to start thinking about that right now, especially if you're in the service.
Commissioner, they talk about PPP, and there was a lot of press about the banks not doing the PPP loans. So, like, if the loans are guaranteed by the federal government, why aren't the banks doing the loans?
Well, I think one of that was the interpretation of the SBA rule of ensuring that it's a real business. So the easiest way for banks to ensure that it's a real business was to only focus on their customers. There are certain banks that are accepting new customers. And believe it or not, some of our smaller community banks want to accept customers. But now you have this vicious cycle of the smaller community banks have extended loans to our community. Everyone is looking for some type of forbearance, so they're not repaying their loans. So the smaller community banks have a liquidity problem. So in the banking business, what you need is the federal government, the feds, to give these banks cash, so that way they can then lend in their community or buy up their current loans, so that way they have liquidity to then participate. So that's one of the challenges that we saw, where when you look at the stats, New York is fourth in terms of the amount of money that was distributed with the PPP. And outside of California and Florida, that makes sense because of the population. But Illinois actually beat us. And that's a direct result of either the community banks not in New York having a lot of micro businesses and the community banks not being able to participate in PPP, or the fact that some of our larger banks here in New York did not get online for about a week after it was announced.
How do we make sure that this relief does get to Black-owned businesses? Because that's always the concern, right? That this kind of relief never gets to the Black-owned businesses. How do we make sure Black-owned businesses get the information they need about the help that's out there for them?
So first of all, I mean, you guys, I appreciate you doing this and making sure that everyone knows, but you have to go to our elected officials, Congress, the House, the Senate. They have to put stipulations in there to ensure that this money can go to different communities. And one of the best ways to do that is ensuring, like our community banks. You have banks like Carver Federal, who are an industry bank. There are Black-owned banks that are still out there that need the liquidity, the cash to be able to participate. You have these smaller CDFIs. Last year, and the last time I was on the show, I talked about we were able to lend and connect businesses to over $70 million in capital. Over 60% of that went through the smaller lenders. So New York, and we're not no different from any other city. We have a lot of small businesses who don't have a traditional bank relationship. So when these stimulus packages come down, they have to include our community banks, our Black-owned banks, and our CDFIs. That's the only way. So once you have the mechanism in terms of the banks having the capital, then it's just up to us collectively to get the word out. In New York City, I've been working with so many different partners, the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce. Everyone that will have me on, I go on, I talk about what's out there and how to actually get help.
Right, because if you don't know, then you won't be able to apply for any of these packages that could help with your small business. So what is the website for people to go on if they want to see about what they're eligible for? And you guys also, you said, give free legal counsel, right, for these businesses to figure out what they can do.
Yeah, so you can go to nyc.gov/COVID-19BIZ. On there, you can see all the different SBA programs, because it's not just the PPP, it's the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. It is, if you have a loan already with the SBA, they're covering the principal and the interest for the next 6 months. So there's a lot of different programs that's there. We have it listed out there. We even have a sample application for the PPP, so you can see the documentation that you're going to need. And if you need help to understand what is a financial statement, hopefully not, but if you do, we can help you figure out how to put those documentation together. The other thing I want to say is to make sure that for the PPP, you have to apply through your lender. That's the only way you can do it. There's a lot of, I would say, entrepreneurs who are now thinking about, oh, I could charge to help somebody put documentation together. You don't need to do that. Just go to your lender. And then if you are looking directly for the economic injury disaster loan, you can go to sba.gov, sba.gov/disaster. And that's how you actually apply to these programs.
All right.
Commissioner, have you seen robertsmithsquickbase.com? What did you think of it if you saw it?
Yeah, actually, when I looked at his interview, and besides the guns, and I was like, oh, this guy is no joke whatsoever. I actually I took a look at it, and it's a great product. And I think, this is one of the things that we need to do coming out of this, because, this pandemic has exposed a lot of things that we have talked about in the past. I remember the last time I was on, I was talking about my initiative for Black entrepreneurs. Not only is the pandemic affecting us by a greater proportion, health-wise, but financially, economically, everything. So we have, as a community, need to come together and work together to address some of these challenges. And that's a great product. I'd be happy to talk to him to figure out how we can actually, get that here in New York and get our folks connected to it.
I'm gonna connect you.
Thank you.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you, Commissioner Gregg Bishop. We appreciate you always for checking in with us and giving us some valuable information that we need at this time.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you
Commissioner.
very much. Yeah, stay safe. Everybody stay indoors. We're in this